Donkey Kong is back in the spotlight thanks to the massive success of Bananza, which is even up for the Game of the Year at the Game Awards coming up. So what better time to rank every Donkey Kong game from worst to best? Warning, this list is based on my own personal opinions, so at least some of you will comment about how I'm wrong for not having the exact same list as yours. Starting off at number 22, Donkey Kong Jr. Math. You can guess why this one's last. Donkey Kong Jr. Math is literally what the name says. You play as Donkey Kong Jr. and you do math. It's an educational title where all you do is just solve basic arithmetic by climbing vines to collect numbers. No platforms, no enemies, besides maybe your own boredom, just addition and subtraction. Nintendo apparently thought combining Donkey Kong with learning would take advantage of the early 80s educational software boom, but the result is not fun. I hate math, I tried it for 5 minutes and never went back. Today it's more interesting as a historical piece than as an actual game. Like, unless you're actually into math or just the biggest Donkey Kong fan of all time, there's no reason to play this game. Number 21, Donkey Kong on the Game & Watch. And this entry isn't a single game, but several little LCD screens from Nintendo's Game & Watch line that starred Donkey Kong. In total, about half a dozen Donkey Kong themed Game & Watch devices were made. Some tried to recreate the arcade platforming on an LCD screen, one was even a 2-player Donkey Kong hockey. By today's standards, they're incredibly simple, basically like playing on a calculator while imagining more. The most famous of these is 1982 Donkey Kong Game & Watch, and it's significant for 2 reasons. One is it introduced the world's first D-pad, like it was invented for this. And also it had a dual screen clamshell design that later inspired the Nintendo DS. It's pretty cool from a gaming history viewpoint, just like with Donkey Kong Jr. Math, but there really isn't much here. Like, the unit itself is a cool collectible, but as a game it's ultra limited. You move Jumpman, also known as Mario, on an LCD screen, timing jumps over barrels, which are just static frames. I guess it plays fine for a 1982 handheld. Number 20, Donkey Kong 3. So I don't hate Donkey Kong 3, it's not broken or anything, but it's just weird. This was the third arcade Donkey Kong game, and instead of Mario / Jumpman, you play as Stanley the Bugman, armed with a can of insect repellent. Your goal isn't to rescue anyone, it's to defend Stanley's greenhouse by spraying bugs and forcing Donkey Kong to climb out of the screen. DK hangs from vines to the top while you blast him, and swarms of bees and bugs follow from below. So yeah, it's not a platformer at all, it's more like a fixed shooter. Like, as a kid, I had no idea this game even existed. When I discovered it later though, I thought it was just weird that this even existed, if I'm being honest. Like, it's fine for a quick arcade game, but it doesn't feel anything like Donkey Kong. There's no barrels, no jumping, no girders, no iconic music. Donkey Kong really isn't even a villain here, it's more like a moving hazard. I respect that Nintendo tried something different, and it's kind of cool that Stanley got his 5 minutes of fame, and he actually would cameo in Smash Bros. Later, but in the grand scheme of things, like, this is just an odd spin-off, and you're not really missing too much without this. 19, Donkey Kong Jr. So this flips the script of the original game. This time you play as the titular character Donkey Kong Jr., who is Donkey Kong's son, and the villain is none other than Mario. Yeah, Mario went full antagonist, he's locked Donkey Kong in a cage, and Jr. has to save his dad. That role reversal gives the game a special charm, and the gameplay centers on climbing vines, jumping between them, and dodging these little enemies. Jr. can climb faster by grabbing 2 vines at once, or slide down quickly on a single vine. More movement variety than Mario had in Donkey Kong. There are even keys you push up chains to eventually unlock DK's cage, and that's a neat stage goal. The downside is the controls feel clunkier than the original. Jr. is a bit sluggish, and the pacing's pretty slow. Lining up jumps can feel awkward due to the slight input delay, and that can get very frustrating. The game includes 4 stages like the original, a Jungle Vine stage, Chains and Spark stage, and a couple more, and they looped with increased difficulty. I appreciate Donkey Kong Jr. for being unique, and I actually played this a lot on my 3DS on Virtual Console when that was a thing, but it didn't grab my attention as much as the first game. Like, the novelty wears off pretty fast, but it's a fun time waster. Also, fun fact, this Donkey Kong Jr. is apparently Donkey Kong, and the Donkey Kong here is apparently Cranky Kong. Just some neat Donkey Kong lore for you. 18, Donkey Kong. This is the one that started it all, the original Donkey Kong arcade game. This 1981 classic essentially invented the platformer genre and introduced the world to Mario, then just Jumpman, and Donkey Kong. It's an absolute legend that deserves all the respect in the world, and the premise is simple. Donkey Kong has kidnapped Pauline, and Jumpman must climb a construction site to save her while DK tosses barrels and other obstacles down at him. Even almost 45 years later, I find it surprisingly playable. The sound effects and music are iconic, just that opening tune, Donkey Kong stomping on the girders, the music when you get the hammer, they're just burned into gaming history, and they've been referenced like thousands of times. Gameplay is all about timing and pattern recognition, learning when to sprint under rolling barrels, when to climb ladders, how to use the hammer power-up effectively. There's only a few distinct screens, and after you beat them, they repeat faster and more difficult. By today's standards, it's obviously very limited. It's just trying to get a high score, but the challenge can still get your knees weak and your palms sweaty as the speed ramps up. There's a reason why people still compete for high scores in this game. When I find an arcade cabinet of Donkey Kong, like, I still like to play it. Like, I remember I first found this on vacation when I was like 5 years old in like 2008, and at that point it was still like almost 30 years old, but I still love the game. And the only reason it is low is just because it is very simple, and I just enjoy the games ahead of it even more. 17, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. So this title's kind of a mess. Like, it's a racing game for the Wii featuring DK characters riding rocket-powered barrels, and it sounds cool in theory, but in execution, it's not the best. It was originally being developed for GameCube to use the DK bongo drum controller, but when it moved to Wii, they forced awkward motion controls instead. You have to drum the Wii remote and nunchuck to accelerate and steer, shake the right hand to go right, left hand to go left, both together to jump, and spoiler, it's not great. The motion controls are unresponsive and tiring, and worse, you don't even fully control your racer. The courses are basically on rails, and your character auto-accelerates along a fixed path. You can only shift between a few lanes and take gentle turns. You can't drive off the track or make sharp turns yourself. The game even auto-guides you through some turns to prevent crashes, which just makes this game like far too kid-friendly. Like, I think that's what they were going for, but instead of doing something like with Mario Kart where kids can enjoy this as well as adults, it just feels like it's completely geared towards small children. However, it's not all bad. The level themes are colorful, and the roster pulls some deep cuts from Donkey Kong lore, like Lanky Kong, Espresso the Ostrich. There's also a mildly interesting mechanic where chaining boosts by hitting boost barrels or bumping into rivals can catapult you ahead, so there is some clever design buried in there. But good luck enjoying any of it when the controls feel so clunky. Like, ultimately, it feels like a mini game, escape from a better game. Because remember, we got Diddy Kong Racing, which was a far better game and came out well before this. And it's disappointing, especially because a Donkey Kong Racing game on the Wii had so much potential, but this game just missed the mark a lot. I do like it better than the arcade games because there is a lot more to do here. Like, those are just pretty much simple time wasters. This has a lot more content, and I think you can get enjoyment out of it, but there are definitely very limited positives about this. Number 16, Donkey Kong King of Swing. So this is one of the strangest Donkey Kong games ever made, and I kind of love it for that. It was a Game Boy Advance title that ditched traditional platforming in favor of a quirky peg climbing mechanic. You use the GBA's L and R shoulder buttons to control DK's left and right hands. Levels are vertical obstacle courses full of pegs, and you swing Donkey Kong around by alternating button presses to grab the pegs and build momentum. It's almost like DK meets Bionic Commando. The developers even noted it's reminiscent of the old NES game Clu Clu Land and how you spin around. The first time you play, it feels completely alien. Like, you'll probably mess up the controls, miss pegs, plummet a lot. But once it clicks, like, once you really get it, the game becomes oddly satisfying. There's a physics-based rhythm to it, like you grab, spin, release, fly through the air, and hopefully latch onto the next peg. The game has a cute cartoony presentation, like far from Rare's pre-rendered style. It has simple, colorful graphics. The sound effects are goofy and cheerful, and there are a few boss battles, and you defeat them by bonking into them because, I mean, how else would you? And there's lots of bananas to collect because it's a Donkey Kong game. There's even a multiplayer battle mode and some party-style minigames in the Jungle Jam mode. And what I appreciate most is that King of Swing commits to being completely different. It doesn't feel like any other Donkey Kong game, or really any other game period. On the flip side, it definitely lacks that classic Donkey Kong Country vibe. Like, it is more of a puzzle action hybrid, and the controls can still be frustrating at times. Like, you do get used to it, but it's still not the best. Also, it's not a very long adventure. At release, it got mixed reception, and I understand why, since it's not for everyone, but I have a soft spot for this game. Like, it's a well-made game. It's not something that's going to give you, like, too many hours of playtime, but if you have a Game Boy Advance, or I don't even know if this is on Switch Online, but you should definitely give it a chance. Number 15, Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy. This was an ambitious portable version of Donkey Kong Country on the original Game Boy. Like, Rare did their best to get these pre-rendered DK graphics into monochrome and even use a special yellow cartridge. And the levels are all new, like they're not direct ports of Donkey Kong Country. They take Donkey Kong and Diddy through familiar jungles, caves, waters, etc. Unfortunately, the technical limits are pretty visible here. Like, the Game Boy screen is small and blurry, and it has a zoomed-in camera causing screen crunch. You often can't see hazards or enemies until it's too late. Busy backgrounds and these gray sprites just blend together, and it makes platforming feel like a guessing game. Controls and physics are also a bit off compared to the SNES. I mean, it's impressive Rare even pulled off a Donkey Kong Country-style game on 8-bit hardware, but in practice, it's kind of difficult and frustrating to play. However, there is a good game here. Like, if you can get past the technical limitations, it is still a very well-made game. Number 14, Donkey Kong Land 3. So the second best of the three Land games in my opinion, and it's loosely based on Donkey Kong Country 3. Of course, this one features Dixie and Kiddy Kong on a quest. By 1997, Rare had refined its handheld technique, and the levels are simpler and the background less cluttered than the first Land game. Like, this definitely does improve visibility. The game plays faster and more fluid, and Dixie's aerial spin works well even on the Game Boy. There's even a few extra features like time attack challenges. Of course, it's still monochrome, but compared to other Game Boy games, it definitely does suffer fewer slowdown and visibility issues. Now, this is very similar to Donkey Kong Country 3, like, it's basically just a worse version of that, like, the easiest way to put it, but it is a very solid experience. experience. Like, I think you are better off with playing the main Donkey Kong Country games compared to these, but if you're looking for a good Game Boy game to play, this is definitely a solid one. And finishing off the Land trilogy, we have Donkey Kong Land 2. So this is essentially a Game Boy remake of Donkey Kong Country 2. The story and stages mirror the SNES game, and of course the scaled out versions of familiar levels. The controls and music are carried over, and you even collect DK coins and Creme coins like the SNES version. However, it inherits DK Country 2's greatness, but also some of its problems. Just like with its prequel, it still has many of the same issues on screen. But again, this is basically Donkey Kong Country 2, which in my opinion, you'll see what that is later, is one of the greatest 2D platformers that we've seen from the series, so it is hard to put it any lower, even though the game is very limited since it's on the Game Boy. Number 12, the Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. So this is one of the most original Donkey Kong games ever. It uses the DK bongos, which were those drum controllers, to control a 2.5D platformer. Like, you hit the left drum to move left, right for right, pound both to run, clap into the mic to stomp or grab bananas. Instead of precise jumping, gameplay is about maintaining flow and combos, chaining together rope swings, bounces, and enemy stomps in a single fluid run. The levels are designed for stylish movement, rewarding you with higher scores for bigger combos. Visually, it's very vibrant and polished, especially for a GameCube game. Like, this was a very well-rated game at the time, and it's surprisingly addictive. And while there were other games to use the bongos, this is a lot of people's favorites. I think there's a couple that are a little better, but it definitely is fairly close. Like, this isn't the most complex game of all time, but it is a really fun game. Number 11, Donkey Konga. Imagine a rhythm game where instead of pressing buttons, you're physically pounding a pair of plastic bongos, and now imagine Donkey Kong doing it too. Oh wait, what's that? I already talked about this? That's because there's multiple games that use the Donkey Kong bongos. And of course I already talked about Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. This game is different though. Gameplay revolves around these scrolling notes similar to games like Guitar Hero or Rock Band, but instead of colored buttons, you match cues by hitting the left bongo, right bongo, both bongos at once, or clapping. And it sounds simple, and it is, but the tactile feedback of actually hitting the drums creates a pretty satisfying feeling that makes this game better than some of the other accessory games like this. The song selection is what really gives Donkey Kong its unique vibe. Rather than just focusing on Nintendo tracks, it features a lot of tracks. It has classic rock song, pop hits, anime themes, classical compositions, and covers of famous video games too. While the Western versions use more licensed covers and children's songs, the Japanese version had more J-pop and anime staples, so it's a completely different game. I actually never played the Japanese version, so I can't really speak for how good that version is, but it is worth noting that it is different. Beyond the main rhythm mode, there are quirky minigames, unlockables, and multiplayer casts. Playing with up to 4 people, each with their own bongo set, is kind of ridiculous to think about, and I never actually got to do this, but it sounds fun. And critically, Donkey Konga was praised for its creativity and uniqueness, and I'm surprised we haven't really gotten anything like this since. Like yeah, we got a sequel, and yeah, we got a version on the Wii, but it's been a very long time since we've seen the Donkey Kong bongos or something like it. And at number 10, Donkey Konga sequel, Donkey Konga 2, because Nintendo saw the original Donkey Konga and said, we need a second one. It's a very similar game, has a slicker UI, has some tighter controls, but mechanically it's the same. Like, if you like the original, you'll like this. If you didn't, you won't like this. But what did change most was the song list, and for many players that is simply the difference. Like, the North American and European versions of Donkey Konga 2 took a sharp turn away from the Nintendo nostalgia of the first game. Like, there were a lot of licensed covers in here, like pretty mainstream songs, which is kind of funny to think about. However, in Japan again, it was again different. And I think while the novelty of the first game had slightly worn off by this point, people still like this game. Like, it's basically just a cleaner version of the original. Track list, I think it's very close. I think I prefer the original a little bit, but I think that this game just plays better. Honestly, I could really have these neck and neck. Like, there's not one Donkey Konga game I think is much better than the other. Number 9, Donkey Kong Jungle Climber. One of the most overlooked gems in the Donkey Kong series, this is a direct follow-up to King of Swing, but improves nearly everything: controls, presentation, gameplay depth, creativity. You still control DK using the L and R buttons to grab onto pegs and swing between them, but Jungle Climber uses the DS's dual screens to expand vertical movement. The entire playfield stretches top to bottom and makes the climbing and aerial traversal feel a lot more dynamic. It's just a brilliant use of the hardware and just a huge leap from the small GBA game. And visually it's a very nice game, especially for a DS game. The sprites look really nice, the animations look great, vibrant backgrounds, and the tone in this is goofy as well. Like, it involves alien bananas and the villainous King K. Rool, of course, trying to harvest them for power. And the addition of Diddy Kong as a partner brings new gameplay layers. Carrying him allows DK to perform double jumps, longer spins, you even unlock special moves depending on the level. The levels themselves are way more varied than its predecessor. Like, there's traditional peg climbing sections, but also puzzle-filled temples. There's multi-phase boss battles as well that cleverly use the peg grab mechanics. It's not a traditional platformer, but it feels uniquely Donkey Kong, and it's just a great follow-up to an already underrated game. Number 8, Diddy Kong Racing. Now, even without Donkey Kong in the title, Diddy Kong Racing is one of the most important games in the DK universe, and it is one of the best kart races of its generation. Developed by Rare, this game wasn't just a Mario Kart clone. It introduced a fully fledged adventure mode, and that was an unheard of concept for the genre at the time. You started in a 3D hub world called Timber's Island, unlocking theme races by collecting golden balloons. From snowy mountains to ancient ruins, dinosaur jungle, each area feels distinct. And the real kicker here, there's 3 vehicle types: cars, hovercrafts, and planes. Every racetrack is designed with one or more of these in mind, and switching between them isn't just a gimmick, but it drastically changes how you approach terrain. Cars handle well on standard tracks, hovercrafts float over water but slide on land, and planes grant full aerial freedom, making level design far more ambitious than what Mario Kart 64 was doing at the time. Power-ups are great here, and you collect colored balloons in mid-races to earn rockets, shields, boosts, magnets, but if you collect the same color multiple times in a row, you upgrade that item, adding a layer of planning on top of that. The character roster was great as well. It introduced Banjo before Banjo-Kazooie, and before Conker's Bad Fur Day, alongside other DK-adjacent animal racers like Tip Top the Turtle and Timber the Tiger. And while Donkey Kong himself is MIA, the tone and energy fit right into the country universe. This was a massive hit, and we eventually got a DS remake, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because it's basically the same game. Like, I shouldn't even call it a remake, it's basically just a port. But the series has been dormant for way too long. Like, this is one of the best kart racers ever made, in my opinion. And if we can get Kirby Air Riders back after 20-something years, we can get Diddy Kong Racing back. Except, I don't know if Nintendo wants to release a game with Diddy in the title at this point. Number 7, Donkey Kong 64. So this was Rare's leap into full 3D platforming. We got Super Mario 64, of course, in '96, and then Donkey Kong made his debut in the third dimension 3 years later. At launch, this game had a lot of hype. It could even ship with an N64 expansion pack, which was required to just run it properly. Fun fact, it wasn't for better graphics, it was to fix a major memory leak. That hardware upgrade foreshadowed the game's biggest trait, excess. You control 5 Kongs: Donkey, Diddy, Tiny, Lanky, and Chunky, each with unique moves, weapons, instruments, and collectibles. The central hub, DK Isles, connects to massive worlds like jungle ruins, toy factories, gloomy caves. The game's structure revolves around collecting a staggering amount of items, so it's colored bananas and each Kong has their own. There's coins, blueprints, banana medals, boss keys, fairies, and more. And this isn't a joke, there's almost 4,000 collectibles in this game. Switching Kongs is kind of where this game falls off a little bit for me. You can only change characters at specific barrels, which means a lot of backtracking. Enter a room as Donkey, realize it needs Diddy, leave, swap, return. It's constant, and for some players it's just killed the flow entirely. Like, it didn't ruin the game for me, but definitely didn't help it. If you do have patience, there is a lot to love here. Like, there's jetpack challenges, minecart rides, shooting galleries, puzzle rooms, bonus stages, and let's not forget about the DK rap. Was it too much? Absolutely. But this is a classic 90s game, and I am glad we finally got another Donkey Kong 3D platformer, because it was long overdue. I know a lot of people don't really like Donkey Kong 64 that much, and I understand why. Like, if you're not into collectathons, you're not gonna like this. And even with all its flaws, I just think there's so much to do here. I think it's a very charming game, and I had a lot of fun with it personally. Number 6, Donkey Kong Country. So this is a game that brought Donkey Kong back. After more than a decade as either a villain or just a punchline, Donkey Kong finally got to star in his own full-fledged platformer, and this helped define the SNES era. This game was revolutionary for its time. The pre-rendered 3D style graphics made it look like nothing else on the consoles. Donkey and Diddy moved fluidly through beautiful environments, and this was all on 16-bit hardware, which is really impressive. But the magic wasn't just in the visuals. The gameplay was tight and satisfying. There was different physics and attack ranges, encouraging you to swap between Donkey and Diddy. Levels featured fast-paced platforming, hidden bonus areas, and barrel cannon puzzles, throw in animal buddies like Gramby the Rhino and Espresso the Ostrich, and you had so much variety here. What really elevates it though is the music. Aquatic ambience, jungle hijinks, and Minecart Madness are some of the most iconic SNES tracks ever made. David Wise composed a score that is considered one of the best of all time, and it's still talked about today. I'm sure if you look back now, the game's a little basic. Like, the boss fights can be repetitive, the game's challenge is definitely front-loaded, but even today it's still fun to play, the controls are crisp, the levels are thoughtfully paced, and that's that rare quality where you instantly feel at home the moment you pick it up. And this is a game I'd love to see remade, especially with Donkey Kong becoming more popular with Bananza. We've gotten remasters of Donkey Kong Country Returns like 3 times, and we got a remaster of Tropical Freeze, so why not get a remaster of any of the Donkey Kong Country games on the SNES? Number 5, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Of the SNES trilogy, this is the most divisive and the most experimental. With DK and Diddy kidnapped, you play as Dixie and newcomer Kiddy Kong. Right away, Country 3 sets itself apart. The setting shifts to the northern Cremisphere, a region of lakes, pine forests, waterfalls. Even the overworld map is interactive. It's got a light Metroidvania flavor in that sense. Like, it's unusual for a 2D platformer at the time. The level design is full of unique mechanics, like rising tides, lightning storms, saw blades chasing you up trees, even stages where you transform into Ellie the elephant or a school of fish. Some levels feel more puzzle-based than reflex-based, and that slower pace did turn off some fans, but I think it's also where it shined. And then the soundtrack again, like, it's great once again. It's the moodier tone, but it isn't immediately memorable. Like, I don't think this is the best of the Donkey Kong Country games, but there's no bad soundtrack here. And while the game definitely is different, like with Dixie at the forefront, she plays just fine here. And I really like how they experimented with this game because it makes each game in the series feel a lot different compared to feeling like a straight up sequel to the next. Like, they really did their best to give each game a different vibe. Like, this was way before the new Super Mario Bros. Days. Number 4, and this is going to be a controversial one, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest. I think on an objective level, this is one of the best 2D platformers of all time. With Donkey Kong kidnapped, Diddy and Dixie take center stage, and they go through Crocodile Isle, and this is a darker game. And the level design here is phenomenal. Like, there's a clear creative leap from Donkey Kong Country 1 levels, and now there's more vertical climbs, more windy caverns, and of course bramble mazes. It seems like every stage introduces new mechanics and enemy types, and it rarely repeats ideas. Animal buddies evolve too, Rambi returns, and now we get Squitter the spider who can create web platforms midair, and Rattly the snake whose springy jump brings both challenge and reward. Then of course there's the music, which I'm gonna bring up for like every game here. David Wise delivered what is arguably one of the greatest soundtracks in gaming. Sticker Bush Symphony, Mining Melancholy, Forest Interlude, like these are just timeless classics. I love the pirate theme of this game. Like when I think of King K. Rool, this is the game I think of, except here he's Captain K. Rool. And the platforming here, it's just tighter and faster than Donkey Kong Country 1. There's a steep difficulty curve, but it is definitely very fair. Now the only reason I don't have this higher is just because I like what some of the newer games did. Like I think they just improved upon what this did. I don't know if some of their levels reached some of the highs of Donkey Kong Country 2, and I could definitely understand this being higher, and I think maybe after another playthrough I even will move it higher. Like there's a reason this game is so beloved, but for now I just have it at 4. And now we move into the top 3, and it's going to be Donkey Kong Country Returns. So like I said, this game has been re-released multiple times. We got the original on the Wii, we got the 3DS remaster, we got the Switch remaster, so I'm just talking about this game in general. So after a long hiatus of Donkey Kong Country games, Returns came back on the Wii, and right away, the visuals popped, it's bright, it's stylized, it still looks fantastic all these years later. Gameplay-wise, this is classic Donkey Kong. Tough platforming, tight hitboxes, fast momentum, but now DK has new tricks like he could pound the ground, blow on flowers, grab ledges to climb around. Levels are packed with hidden puzzle pieces, secret exits, and Kong letters. Like, there's just so much to discover in this. The rocket barrel and minecart levels return and are more intense than ever. Like, they demand some pretty perfect timing. And the silhouette levels just peak. You play in shadows against glowing sunsets, and some of the most visually creative stages Nintendo's ever made. Diddy Kong rides on Donkey Kong's back in single player, giving you his jetpack for an extra hover, and in co-op a second player controls Diddy outright, which adds a lot of chaos, but it's also pretty fun. And the difficulty in this game is no joke. Like, this game expects you to learn its rhythm, and does punish you if you just can't get the hang of it. There is one drawback though, and it's hard to even call it that much of a drawback because I don't think it's that bad. But the motion controls, like shaking the Wii remote to roll or pound the ground, breaks the flow a little bit. It's not game ruining, but it's the one thing people still complain about with the original. But obviously you can play this on the Switch or 3DS if you don't want motion controls. Like, it's actually really impressive how Donkey Kong Country had such a long hiatus and then they brought it back and made arguably a game better than any of the original 3. Like, that's gonna be controversial. There's gonna be a lot of people in the comments telling me I'm wrong or how it's a crime to have a different opinion than them. But I really love Donkey Kong Country Returns. Also, I never actually have played the Switch remaster, but I did order it for $30, so I look forward to playing it again. Number 2, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So in my opinion, this is the peak of 2D Donkey Kong. It takes everything that worked in Returns and just perfects it. The visuals are stunning, like the jump to HD here definitely was noticeable. The oceans look great, the mountaintops look beautiful, and it's rendered in 60 FPS. Every level's a spectacle, and each one just looks so different. Like, there's just so many different themes here. And the setup is simple here. The evil snowmads freeze Donkey Kong Island, and the Kong set out across a series of islands to take it back. It's a very clever twist because Donkey Kong, who's usually in more tropical areas, is now tropically frozen. Yeah, that's an awful joke. Each world has its own theme, like there's African savannas, underwater coral reefs, mechanical factories, and of course a frozen jungle because, I mean, why not? But I think what really elevates the experience beyond the beautiful visuals is the level design. Every stage introduces just a fresh mechanic, whether it's swinging vines, shifting platforms, rising lava, time puzzles. It just never feels repetitive. This is one of the more difficult Donkey Kong games in my opinion, but it's just never unfair. Like, the platforming just feels so tight and responsive that it feels like it's your fault. Like, I can understand some other games in the series where the controls aren't perfect and can kind of work against you, even though I don't think any of these games play bad, but you're not going to have anything here where you feel like the controls are working against you. Gameplay wise, Donkey Kong does feel a little heavier and slower here. Diddy's jetpack returns, and then there's also Dixie and Cranky. Also, on Switch, Funky Kong adds a breezier mode with easier handling and extra health. I remember when this first came out and everyone was hyping up the new Funky mode. Like, why don't we have more games with funky modes? And then the music here, like, do I even need to bring it up again? I'm not going to talk about it too much here because I'm really going to go in depth in the music in the next game, and I'm supposed to be talking about the whole games here, not just the soundtrack. soundtracks. This game didn't get a lot of attention when it came out because it was on the Wii U, but it's been ported to the Switch since, so a lot of people have gotten their hands on this. And usually when you ask someone what their favorite 2D Donkey Kong game is, you're either going to get Tropical Freeze or Donkey Kong Country 2 as their answer. I've actually never played the Switch version of this either. I played it originally on Wii U. And at number 1, I know someone's going to say, oh, it's all the recent games that are in the top 3. I have Donkey Kong Bananza. And yeah, I acknowledge that, like Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong, Tropical Freeze, and Donkey Kong Bananza are the 3 newest platformers in the series, but that's not why this is my top 3. I just really love the modern style of the series. And Donkey Kong Bananza, like when we got an announcement of this, it came out of nowhere. Like with the Switch 2, like I think most of us were expecting a new 3D Mario. And then we saw Donkey Kong Bananza, and immediately people drew comparisons to Odyssey, which makes sense considering the same team that made Odyssey made Bananza. This is the first true 3D platformer in the series since Donkey Kong 64, and Bananza wastes no time making a statement. It just drops you into the mines at first, and it shows you the mechanics, like where you could just pretty much break anything around you, collect gold, find collectibles, and it's just super satisfying to collect all this and to reshape the entire terrain. And then the movement here is by far the best in the series. Like it's hard to compare it to 2D games, but it's just so fun to play. Like Donkey Kong just has so many moves you can do, like wall jumps, charge punches, ground pounds to break the earth, and of course the Bananzas, which each one is just super fun. Like you can turn into a Kong Bananza, Snake Bananza, Ostrich Bananza, Elephant Bananza, and each one does something different, and they're all actually used a decent amount. Also, I forgot to mention Zebra Bananza. Shout out Zebras. And this game also isn't the hardest Donkey Kong game, but it's surprisingly difficult, especially some of the special areas. Like some of them I just gave up on after a while because I didn't want to lose all my gold. Also, all the levels here are just so great. Like in Odyssey, we got all the kingdoms that were very visually distinct, and then we got the same thing in Bananza where you just keep going down into the earth. And some of these aren't the most memorable, but the ones that are memorable are just fantastic. Like the Feast Layer, Groove Layer, Racing Layer, which doesn't have too much to do, but I mean, when you get there, you'll know why I'm talking about it. And then we got to talk about the music. For the 20th time, this game has a phenomenal soundtrack. Like there's so many callbacks to previous games, there's so many new tracks here. All of the Bananza themes are great, and one of my favorite video game tunes of all time is in this, in Breaking Free Heart of Gold. Like I've talked about this multiple times before on this channel. I have a whole video talking about Donkey Kong Bananza music if you want to check that out. And this is one of my favorite 3D platformers of all time. Like I've just loved this game. Like it's just so fun. Like it's probably not objectively the best game of all time or anything like that, because I think there are some flaws here, but it's just purely a fun game. Like it sets out to be a fun game, and that's what it is. Not a lot of games where you can just destroy like the entire environment like this. Like the only one I could really think of is like Crackdown, or that one that was on the original Xbox. I forgot what that game was called. Like this game takes full advantage of the Switch 2 hardware. Like this would not have ran on the original Switch. There's a lot more I could say about this, but I don't want to spoil it since the game's still pretty new. This is one of the few games that I have no problem spending $70 on. Like it was worth every penny. This is completely a system seller. Like if you're on the fence about getting a Switch 2, this is a game that could just sell a system. Like I already had one before this, but if you're on the fence and like Donkey Kong, it's hard to say no to an opportunity to play through this game. Also, we got to talk about the lore of this game, because without spoiling anything, it raises a lot of questions about Pauline and Donkey Kong and even Mario, but that's a topic for another video. And that's the list. Like I know a lot of people have already commented saying how I'm wrong, or how I need to stop playing video games because I don't agree with them, or how I shouldn't be allowed to rank the game since I wasn't around for the SNES titles. But you know what? I just want to hear your rankings. Like this is solely my list. Like it's only based on my personal opinions, like how much I enjoyed each game when I played it. This isn't meant to be objective in any way. It's all just for fun. And if you made it to the end of the video, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, as I have a lot of other content I think you'll enjoy. And also consider joining my Discord and becoming a channel member for just a couple bucks a month. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.